I'm going to ask Candice to come and share with me now in conversation. I usually, at some point in one of these evenings, have a conversation with someone. Candice works for us, and she works in our whole area of marketing and all kinds of things that relate to. Tell us a bit about your background, where you're from, and something about that.
I'm from Sydney, and I work in marketing and communications and have done for almost 20 years, I guess. That gives a bit away of my age.
Not always with us, though, was it?
No. But I have worked in faith-based not-for-profits pretty much my whole career.
Yeah. So tell us about, when we talk about trust, I'm going to be talking about trust, and trust for every Christian matters. Where did your first trust in God?
I was raised, my mum's a Christian, but I chose to trust God when I was about 19. Like, we all have to make the decision. You can't just rely on your parents' faith.
Did it suddenly become real? It had to be personal for you, or was it something that was in the back of your mind?
It was just something that, because it was something I'd grown up with, I made a choice to figure out if it was a choice for me. So I spent some time praying and reading a devotional, and God revealed himself.
And in a moment you trusted him?
I guess over a season.
Tell me then, so has it been plain sailing since?
Never plain sailing. We all live on the same planet, never plain sailing.
I'm glad you say that, because I think for a lot of people, when they hear Christians talking about trust, they can feel, oh, well, it's all right for them to say that. But it isn't all right, is it? There are tough times that come along in your life. You trust God. It doesn't mean your trust is gone, but sometimes the waters are choppy, aren't they? And tell me a little bit about the choppy waters.
Well, the most recent choppy waters was several years ago. I was diagnosed with cancer, and it's been very choppy, very, very tough. But God is good and trustworthy. And
we've seen some of that journey with you. And what was it like when you were told that?
Devastating, absolutely devastating. So
something you just never expected to hear and you had to listen to.
Definitely, yeah.
So what do you do then? You're a Christian person. Now, you know that what lies ahead of you is probably a road that's not going to be easy, but you've got that road ahead of you. What do you do?
I did make a very specific decision to trust God through that journey, because I realised that if I didn't, I would still have cancer and have no God, and I don't know what the point in that would be.
So it wasn't a case of saying, I'm going to trust God. I know for certain everything's going to be right, because you don't know for certain. But you knew in that moment that it was important to do that. So there's a lot of trust involved here, isn't there? There's trusting doctors as well as trusting God. And that, in a way, is the trusting God through doctors, isn't it? Tell me what that's like.
Definitely. I have prayed a lot for the medical staff that have attended
Never
to me.
before have you prayed for medical staff more, I've no doubt.
Yes.
And when you did that, what about the family and friends and people that you know around you? What's their reaction to things like that?
A lot of people have, increased their own trust in God from watching my journey.
Yeah.
But they have been an immense blessing to me, and they are a demonstration of how trustworthy God is because of their goodness to me.
So you go through that time of medical surgery and all that lies behind that. And it's not, as with most cancers, you know that when you go through that moment, it's not a certainty that this is just going to be a plain sailing. So there's more trust involved now.
Yes.
And how does that work out for you? Is it a trust that happens easily, or are there times when you really are out pushing your boat from the water, as it were? What is that like?
It's a reminder that my life truly is in God's hands, and that's the same for each of us. But until you're sort of reminded of it, I just have to live each day trusting God. So
lots of your colleagues and friends who've worked with you have seen you put that trust into practice, into action, as it were. I suppose I often say this to people if I'm interviewing them on TV or I'm doing something. If somebody's overhearing our conversation and they're going through a time, I don't know what it would be, because it may not be the same. It might be about a relationship. It might be about a job. It might be about any one of many things. And they wonder what the future, what would you say to them? How would you talk about putting faith in practice?
It's a very good question, and I think for each person it's different. But like I said, I would be left with cancer and no God, and I just didn't see the point in that. So yes, I realise that cancer sounds like it's a big deal and it's really scary, but there are lots of other troubles and trials that we all go through, and God understands every single one. So it's worth trusting him.
You're trusting somebody who cares about you, who loves you, who has a concern for you. And this is the bit that's important. Who is trustworthy? How have you known God is trustworthy? Just by doing it? Or are you drawing on everything you've learned and you've understood about the Christian faith?
Well, as a Christian, there's a lot that I do draw on. Like, I've learnt on the Bible a lot through this journey.
Yeah.
But I've also seen the tangible expression of God's trustworthiness, just the blessings, the things that have come through. I had complementary and conventional treatments, and some of the conventional treatments can be really harsh, but I didn't suffer from the symptoms that a lot of people suffer from. And I see that type of thing as God being trustworthy and just coming through for me. That I had to go through awful things like chemo and radiation, but I didn't suffer from a lot of the side effects.
And lots of us have observed that, and we've seen in Candice a person who has gone that journey. She's done the miles that are necessary, and she's coming out the other side now. We can see it in her smile, and we can see it in her work, and we can see it in so many ways. So thank you for being willing to share. Shall we express our thanks to Candice for being willing to share and talk about faith?